Hi, I'm Huck. And before we get down to the legal business for why the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act is so unquestionably constitutional that even our current court, which sees corporations as people and mistakes money for free speech, well, even they are likely to uphold it. First, let us get two irrelevant distractions out of the way. One, the case for or against Obamacare has nothing whatsoever to do with how popular or unpopular it may be according to the latest polls. I won't even waste your time with the overwhelming evidence of how super rich conservatives like the Koch brothers and Republican leaders in Congress and in the Senate have spent an enormous fortune of time and money for the past 3 years, leading to misguided perceptions and influencing those very polls. And two, this case is not about whether Obamacare is the best possible solution for all of our health care ills. As a progressive Democrat myself, I certainly don't personally find the Affordable Care Act to be among the best solutions for our health care problems, although I do concede it goes a long way towards resolving some of them. The only question before the Supreme Court is whether this law, good or bad, popular or not, is constitutional. That's it. And I might remind you that if every law had to be both popular and perfect, we would have very few laws indeed. And if we are going to be serious about this subject, then it's time we dismiss all the mock Tea Party outrage that somehow Obamacare represents an unprecedented attack and infringement on our individual liberties. Or likewise, that it's some un-American European-style departure from our capitalist free market principles. As this video will explain, in cases that go as far back as 1790 in our very first Congress, when they enacted a law that mandated health insurance coverage for all men commercially employed at sea, to as recently as 2005, and quite literally in hundreds and hundreds of cases in between, ranging from mandated vaccinations and Social Security taxes to forced military drafts and minimum wage requirements. The Supreme Court has consistently found that rationally conceived mandates are constitutional. It was true more than 200 years ago, and it's still true today. In short, Obamacare is not some continuation of a 1930s socialist doctrine, as some on the radical right would have you believe. And by some on the radical right, basically I refer to virtually every Republican who holds any statewide or nationally elected office. If there are still any moderates in the Republican Party, they are far too scared to admit it and far too intimidated to vote it. What is sure to come as a complete shock to these bozos is that Obamacare adheres to the very same constitutional interpretations as voiced by some of the staunchest conservatives ever to sit on the Supreme Court, including recent opinions as written by Scalia, Kennedy, and the late Chief Justice Rehnquist. But more on that in a moment. And as for capitalist principles, it's really time that the Tea Party folks and the radical conservative voices they follow face up to the reality that healthcare simply doesn't follow the same rules, the same competition and free market principles found in other consumer services and products. People don't shop appendectomies like soap, looking to save a few dollars by going to Walmart or the local discount dollar store. They don't clip coupons for their next hospital stay. The same folks who drive all the way across town bypassing 3 gas stations in the process just so they can save 3 cents a gallon before they fill up their tank don't necessarily follow the same strategy when trying to find out where they're going to get their next CAT scan. The fact is, the same market forces and incentives that drive most consumer decisions simply do not apply to the healthcare choices we typically make. When you or someone you love suffers a heart attack or is injured in a serious accident, when your child runs a dangerously high fever or has an asthma attack, odds are the last thing you worry about is the most affordable care you can find. What you want is the most immediate, competent care you can find. Period. That's as true if you are insured or if you're not. This despite that for any single medical procedure, the costs vary dramatically from one hospital to another, and even from one patient to another within the same facility. A recent survey in California, for instance, showed that among the hospitals and healthcare clinics across the state, an identical medical procedure could range in cost from less than $5,000 to greater than $100,000. Moreover, typically in the healthcare industry, hospitals will charge Medicare patients a lower amount for an identical procedure. Slightly more is charged to privately insured patients, while uninsured patients typically pay vastly more. And while Obamacare was, in part, designed to address some of these inequities in our healthcare system, critics of Obamacare are correct when they say that it doesn't go near far enough. Just another reason why the Affordable Care Act is perhaps not the perfect solution for our healthcare problems in America. But again, this is different than whether or not the law is constitutional. Despite its less than perfect solutions and less than rousing popularity, Obamacare is making some significant inroads to improving healthcare in America. The data doesn't lie. The most recent independent studies show that millions are now insured that otherwise would not be. That millions of seniors have saved billions in Medicare prescription costs. And perhaps most surprisingly, the outrageous, out of control inflation of health insurance rates have been dramatically slowed. When some Tea Party wacko tells you that, well, their insurance rates just went up 20 or 25% in the last year or two, you can tell them that that's probably because their insurance provider is gouging them, while the gouging is still good. Because as of 2014, under Obamacare, all rate hikes will then have to be justified by all health insurance providers. And that justification must include proof of corresponding payouts equal to any rate adjustment. Something really never required of most health insurance providers before. And so for you teabaggers out there taking pleasure in the poll numbers, and for you progressives out there incensed that Obamacare embraces rather than eliminates the for-profit health insurance industry, your concerns and complaints legally have no standing. What matters is whether Congress has the authority to enact this law. Tomorrow I will begin to lay out the irrefutable case on why Obamacare meets every constitutional threshold demanded of it, and why even our Kangaroo court must surely see that and uphold Obamacare as the law of the land. I hope you will watch. Thanks for watching. I'm Huck. I'll see you tomorrow.